Welcome to the Practical Preppers Podcast. I'm your host, Nihal Kaur. Today's episode is called Practically Prepping, Where to Begin. And I'm going to be sharing with you where we would begin when we're practically prepping. I've devised a 4F system as a practical beginning to prepping for hard times. 4 F's because it's easy to remember, and each step, in my opinion, is the most important and most practical areas in which we need to focus on when beginning the process of securing a better future for you and your family. The 4 practical areas, or the 4 F's, in which we need to begin focusing on to start the practical prepping journey is fresh water, food, finance, and first aid. Again, fresh water, food, finance, and first aid. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into what specifically we should be doing with these 4 F's. I think it's important to focus on the why is this important question of the 4 F's. Why should we start here? The purpose of the 4 F's is to buy yourself and your family extra time. Time is so important. If, God forbid, the breadwinner of your household falls ill with a terminal illness or dies suddenly in a car accident, your family is prepared with at least a month of buffer of food before you even need to think about going to the grocery store. Your family has at least $2,000 in emergency funds before your family needs to focus on money. Your family has at least 3 months of buffer on large scheduled finances that you might owe, such as your rent, your mortgage payments, your car loan payments, your insurance payments, or even your utilities. First aid. To have a complete kit and have training, knowledge, and confidence in your first aid skills to avoid either a pricey trip to the hospital, to prevent infection, and even save a person's life. Now, fresh water. Without water, you're gonna die. Period. In the event of a power outage, a 100-year flood event, a hurricane, a snowstorm, a riot, a martial law lockdown, or any situation where bugging in is your best chance at survival, these 4 F's will give you a better chance at living through the shitstorm. I'm going to say that fresh water is the most important of the 4 F's, but treat all of them as the most important. I'm starting with water because without water, you're sure to die the soonest. So I think it's the highest priority on the list, but to get started, all 4 are essential. Having access to fresh water in emergency situations will give you life and it will give you time. So having a filter on hand, even currently, I think is really important. I have a filter in my home to filter out tap water. You can even use it if you have a well. The filter that I use is a Berkey system, and I think it's a great product. I think it does a really good job, and I would trust my Berkey to filter out rainwater after I've boiled it. So that's how much faith I have in this filter system. Plus, for a family of 5, it lasts a really long time. I mean, the filters last for years. Years! All right, you can't say that about a Brita or some other filters. Having extra water on hand is extremely important. It's recommended by the CDC to have at least 1 gallon of water per person per day for a minimum of 3 days, ideally 2 weeks. So for my family, which is a family of 5, that would be about 70 gallons of water on hand at any given time, which is about 14 5-gallon water jugs. The second F that I'm going to talk about, this is number 2 out of 4, is food. The CDC recommends having on hand at least 3 meals per day, ideally for a month per person. And I would honestly say that this is a minimum requirement. There are some people that might have upward of a year worth of food stocked at any given time. For us, we just don't have the storage. So for us, practically, it's not practical actually for our situation. So I would say for our situation and our family and the amount of storage that we have available, a minimum of 3 months would be ideal for my family and I. And again, this is for so many different situations that having extra food on hand can help. For example, if the breadwinner in your family got hurt or fell sick or even died, you would have at least a month to 3 months worth of food in your home before you would even need to focus on going to the grocery store and worry about feeding your family, because everything that you have is on hand in that moment. Or in a more dire situation, if you think about World War III from the context of World War II, during World War II, there was a breakdown in the supply chain where the United States population didn't have access in abundance to all of the foods that we're used to having on a regular basis. Families were assigned food ration books where they could go and get certain groceries like meat, eggs, canned fruits and vegetables, and sugar, things that we all take granted for today. If a World War III scenario were to break out, and it seems like it's not unlikely actually within our lifetimes, it's possible that we could experience a similar breakdown in our supply chain, and it's possible that we could experience a similar shortening of our food supplies and needing to go on to food rations. So in that event, having food rations of your own on hand could be extremely useful and beneficial and actually save your family. And in the event of severe storms and landslides, something like what we saw over the past couple years in Asheville, North Carolina, if you have that food on hand and if your house didn't get swept away in the water, then you would actually be able to help out your community. You would become a valuable asset and a Savadar is what we'd call it, volunteer to be able to help out your community and keep your community alive. Next, we'll move on to the third F. This is 3 of 4, and that is finance. Having at least $2,000 minimum, I would say $2,000 in emergency funds. And emergency funds is separate from your savings. So ideally, you would have multiple accounts. You would have your checking, you would have your savings, and you would have an emergency savings account that you would use in the event of emergency situations, like maybe something happened and your car is broken and you need to pay for it, or maybe you need to pay a hospital bill, an emergency room bill, something like that. Another part of finance is paying your bills ahead of schedule, so that way you don't, 1, either fall behind, or 2, it gives you a buffer in the event of an emergency. So if you can have your bills prepaid at least 3 months ahead of time, if you can pay it more than 3 months ahead of time, then that would be ideal. But 3 months at minimum, if you can pay your bills ahead of time, you're going to have a 3-month buffer in the event that you lose your job, in the event that you get hurt, or in the event that you fall ill. You have 3 months of buffer time of your bills being paid. And this can go for your rent, for your mortgage, for your car payments, for your insurance, any large bill that you need to pay, even your utilities, you can pay ahead of time. And that will give you a buffer, so that way you don't need to worry about, oh my God, I need to pay my mortgage this month, and I'm sick and I haven't gone to work and I don't have a paycheck, or I got in a car crash and blah, blah, blah. It gives you a buffer. It gives you time to be able to take care of you before you need to take care of things that aren't you. All right, last but not least, the 4th F is first aid. Not only is it important to have a fully stacked first aid kit, but it's also important to have the confidence and the knowledge and experience to be able to perform first aid. There's not much point in having a tourniquet in your first aid if you don't know how to use it. I'm going to rattle off some of the things that I keep in my first aid kit, and your first aid kit does not need to be limited to these things, but I think in general this can do you pretty good out in the field. If you have it in your car, I always bring one with me hiking. I always put one in my car. There's a first aid kit that's more decked out that's actually at home, and I make sure that I have my husband pack a first aid kit into his car. So in general, what we keep in our first aid kits are bandages, sterile gauze, antiseptic ointment, pain and fever medication, antihistamines, antibiotics, butterfly bandages, which are a great replacement for stitches, tourniquet, bleed stop, finger cots, and D-mannose supplements, and bacitracin. First aid is exactly what it sounds like. It's first aid. You are taking the first steps from preventing a minor wound from becoming a major wound, or you're taking the first steps from preventing a major wound from causing your death. Bleed stop or some kind of coagulant equivalent is, I think, extremely important to have in your first aid kit along with the tourniquet, because it stops blood, and it can stop blood coming from major wounds. Having antibiotics on hand, I think, is extremely important, because there have been times where I personally needed antibiotics and I couldn't get in with a doctor for a couple months at a time because of scheduling. In the event of natural disasters where doctors might not be readily available, you might not be able to get antibiotics. So I think having them on hand is extremely beneficial and extremely important. Keeping supplements on hand that can help treat more common infections, such as D-mannose, which is used to treat urinary tract infections, I think is a great idea, because you can take medications or supplements that aren't antibiotics that can help heal certain infections in your body. Bacitracin and antihistamines, I think, are extremely important, because if for some reason you touch something or have a reaction to something that causes a lot of itching, you definitely don't want to be scratching wounds open into your body and giving your body points of infection. Antiseptic ointments and sprays and clean bandages and sterile gauze are also extremely important, because it helps prevent infection, it helps keep your wound wet, which allows it to heal faster. Pain relievers and fever medications are also extremely important to have on hand, because if you get a fever, you definitely don't want it spiking to a level that's not controllable, and it also gives you time to be able to get into the doctor so that way you can get treated properly. So, as a recap, the 4 F's are fresh water, food, finance, and first aid. If you can get set up in those 4 areas, then you are on a solid start to practically prepping for a secure and better future for you and your family. Some extra things to consider are: can you cook without electricity? Can you heat your home without electricity? Can you communicate with your friends and family nearby without electricity? And if you need to evacuate your home, do you have everything that you need for at least a 3-day period ready to go in an easy to grab bag, or otherwise known as a go bag? Do you have a go bag? And a follow-up question to that is, what do you think you need in your go bag? These are some questions to consider after you have your 4 F's down, and I will be covering these topics in future episodes. I hope that you find this practical guide to prepping useful. The 4 F's, I think, is a great way to start. But again, it's just that. It is a starting point. It is a practical starting point for people who don't know what to do and where to begin. Thank you for joining me on today's episode, and I hope to see you in future episodes. You all take care, and God bless.
It's time for you to learn your strength and what you can control. We've been running around doing what we're told, chasing a dream that we've been sold, as we work so hard to build our home. There's a freedom in the dirt, only dreamers know. We all want to live each day. Let me show you a better way. Let's ground our hearts and souls. Seeds of hope. There's a better way to live. feed your soul.